Saturday, February 8. Welcome back, Foxy Games UK new and existing subscribers. So this video was meant to go up yesterday, but I was busy packing. I'm moving house. I'm sure a lot of you know how that goes. But anyway, in today's video, the dreaded coronavirus, which has already infected tens of thousands and killed hundreds around the world, could have an impact on next-gen plans and has already impacted incoming game releases, causing delays, is a quote from Jefferies Group Investment. The video game sector is currently manufacturing or beginning to a once in several years product generation change for the 2020 holiday season. If company shutdowns exceed a month or so, game schedules and events etc. will be delayed. New consoles may likewise suffer supply issues from prolonged disruption ahead of the planned fall 2020 launches. So the Outer Worlds physical release for Nintendo Switch has been delayed because of the coronavirus, and many other key game releases are expected to follow. Even Nintendo Switch production is affected due to the Foxconn closing its plant in China due to the virus. Now, the most unfortunate thing about the coronavirus is the amount of entitled people commenting, "Where's my PS5 news? Where's the studio announcements? Where are the spec announcements? Where? Well, I'm so sorry this global problem that is coronavirus is delaying Sony's plans for you. I'm so sorry the virus could be influencing when Sony Interactive Entertainment decide to talk about PS5 on a lovely, brightly lit stage. What a terrible inconvenience it is for you that tens of thousands of people are sick and hundreds have died while you have to wait for your precious PS5 event news. Ah, poor you. In other news, Microsoft's Xbox boss Phil Spencer says Amazon and Google are its main competitors, suggesting that neither Sony nor Nintendo can compete in Microsoft's big cloud game streaming gamble. Bold words for third place. And GamesIndustry.biz commented, if Microsoft wants to own the future of gaming, it needs to keep its eye on the ball with Xbox here and now, and not get distracted by daydreams of who its competition might be in a decade's time. Making for a rather sobering article, but we'll refer back to that later. So starting with TheVerge.com, Microsoft's head of gaming and Xbox, Phil Spencer, has revealed that the company sees Amazon and Google as its main competition for the future. Speaking in an interview with newly launched technology publication Protocol, Spencer dismisses Sony and Nintendo's ability to create a cloud infrastructure that would challenge Microsoft, Google, or Amazon. Here's a quote. When you talk about Nintendo and Sony, we have a ton of respect for them, but we see Amazon and Google as the main competitors going forward. That's not to disrespect Nintendo and Sony, but the traditional gaming companies are somewhat out of position. I guess they could try to recreate Azure, but we've invested tens of billions of dollars in cloud over the years. So Microsoft has been realigning its gaming efforts for a future far beyond the Xbox console. The software giant's big effort now involves reaching billions of players around the world with cloud gaming. Google has already launched its Stadia service, and Microsoft is trailing its own xCloud streaming service that is set to launch fully later this year. Spencer has previously discussed the threat of Amazon and Google as competitors, but not in such clear terms. He has also previously stated that Microsoft's gaming business isn't how many consoles you sell, and he acknowledges this further by noting that Microsoft isn't interested in getting into a future format war with Nintendo and Sony. I don't want to be in a fight over format wars with those guys, while Amazon and Google are focusing on how to get gaming to 7 billion around the world, says Spencer in the Protocol interview. He went on to say ultimately that's the goal. That means Microsoft is getting ready for future console wars that will take place in data centers, and it's ready to partner with competitors that can also use Azure. Microsoft partnered with Sony last year, and the pair appears to be readying to host Sony's services on Azure in the future. Cloud gaming still seems like it's in a distant future, especially as Sony and Microsoft prepare to launch the traditional PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X consoles later this year. Both next-generation consoles will go head-to-head throughout the important holiday season, and Nintendo is still seeing positive growth with its Switch sales thanks to the new Switch Lite. Interesting. You know, I recall quite vividly, perhaps 12 months or so ago, I remember Phil Spencer talking up Microsoft's ambitions to claim and facilitate an estimated 2 billion gamers into its Xbox ecosystem. Presumably, Microsoft thought that China relaxing its video game content laws would gravitate towards Xbox One, while they were completely wrong about the Chinese market, and as a result, Microsoft were largely unsuccessful, only managing to move around 50 million Xbox One units worldwide after almost 6 years since launch. And in spite of this, Microsoft have really set their goals even higher. The Redmond firm now says it wants to attract some 7 billion players. That's most of the people on planet Earth. lofty ambitions for sure. Though GamesIndustry.biz firmly hit the nail on the head with their take on Microsoft's new direction, asking who are Microsoft's real competitors. Google and Amazon being the real competition for Xbox reveals the tricky balancing act that Microsoft's games teams now faces. This is a long-term strategic kind of level on which Phil Spencer's comments this week about the real competition for Xbox being Google and Amazon but not Nintendo and Sony are not only sensible but actually insightful when you think about it. His thinking is aligned with the big picture view for Microsoft. Much of those recent successes has been based on the growth and development of the Azure cloud platform. As a consequence, Google and Amazon, the two other cloud service giants, really are the competition for Microsoft. For Spencer to say this ahead of the Xbox makes clear the extent to which the objectives and rationale of that division currently lines up with those of the company as a whole. The companies which compete with Microsoft are by this logic also the most important competition for Xbox. Yet if we narrow down our focus just a little, spin the dials so we're just looking at the commercial reality here and now, what Spencer is saying sounds quite mad. Google's efforts at launching a game streaming empire with Stadia has really stuttered their way out of the door and promptly face planted. Stadia might yet become a major force in the industry, but it will need to recover from a weak, badly received launch, something Microsoft has a little painful experience with, and find a raison d'etre, and that makes sense for really both consumers and publishers, neither of whom seem enthusiastic about this thus far. Now, Amazon has made noises about its interest in games for ages, but this remains little but noise. Amazon at this point in time is not in the games business beyond being a retailer. Meanwhile, Nintendo has just swept past 50 million unit sales of the Switch. Sony's PlayStation 4 is outselling every other console in history at this point in its life cycle with over 100 million unit sales, and at the end of this year Microsoft will launch a new Xbox console to go head to head with the arrival of PS5. But right here and now, Spencer's Xbox division has competitors, and they're not Google and they're not Amazon. It is Nintendo and Sony with whom it will have to fight tooth and nail for every unit of installed base for the Xbox Series X. This duality is something of an insight into the peculiar and difficult balancing act that the Xbox division has to perform on a daily basis. Spencer and his team know, I'm sure, that much of their job in the near term really is convincing people to engage or re-engage with Xbox, to treat Xbox Series X as a genuine and legitimate consumer choice to be weighed against Sony and Nintendo's offerings. They've already made it clear that the game they're playing has somewhat a longer horizon, and they're willing to sacrifice some immediate gains for their broader strategy, hence the decision not to make any first-party software for Xbox Series X exclusive at the outset, for example. But if anything, that's an example of how they're seeking to differentiate their consumer offering from what Sony and Nintendo are doing, turning Xbox into a primary subscription-based platform in a way that they hope will eventually give them an advantage over their platform rivals. Yet while that may be the strategy the Xbox division has adopted towards the consumer market, it's not really the role they play in Microsoft's broader strategy. As far as Microsoft's upper management and its top-level long-term strategy is concerned, the role of Xbox is to ensure that the cloud-based future of video games plays out to the benefit of Azure. Nobody but those privy to meetings involved can know for sure, but it seems likely that it was a pitch to that effect which ensured the survival of Xbox division at the point when Microsoft new leadership under Satya Nadella was shifting focus towards cloud services and aggressively cutting out underperforming divisions and projects, including some high-profile consumer-facing ones like Windows Phone that didn't tie effectively into that vision. Someone, quite possibly Spencer himself, persuaded Microsoft that Xbox could be a powerful, meaningful pillar supporting the company's core cloud business. That means lip service at the very least, but really must be paid to the notion that the real competition lies in a deeply unproven cloud streaming rival off to a rocky start. Plus whatever the hell Amazon is doing, and not in the high-flying game platform selling tens of millions of hardware units each year, or even in the enormous digital distribution storefronts from Valve and to a lesser extent Epic that dominate PC gaming. So lip service may be a bit harsh. I imagine that Spencer firmly believes in what he's saying, not least because the comment about streaming services bringing gaming to 7 billion people really is chapter and verse from the Gaming Streaming Evangelist's Handbook. He may really be right, of course, but it's far too early to say, but destined to be proven right over time perhaps. In the short term though, the reality is that at the end of this year Microsoft is going to launch a new games console, and that console is going to have to win the hearts and minds of people eyeing up a PS5 or possibly a Switch as alternative purchases. Nobody, not a single person, is going to be weighing up an Xbox Series X in 10 months time and thinking, oh, maybe I'll use Google Stadia instead, or I don't know, Amazon is a company that exists, so maybe I won't get an Xbox. But plenty of them will be making a direct comparison, really a buying decision between Xbox, PlayStation and Switch. So never mind 10 to 15 years from now, Microsoft's competition in terms of video games is Sony and Nintendo, here and now, whether they like it or not, and it's Xbox division that needs to look down from the distant hazy horizon and focus on the battle that's right in front of them. And a complicating factor, of course, is that while Microsoft needs to compete with Sony and Nintendo for consumer hearts and minds, because Xbox isn't going to be a meaningful pillar of anything if it ceases to be a meaningful video game brand in its own right. The company would also very much like really firms to be loyal customers of Azure. That's another balancing act that faces the Xbox division. Of course, it wants people to buy an Xbox Series X over PlayStation 5, but it's also aware that Sony's gaming division has the potential to be one of Azure's biggest customers. Now, from a big picture point of view, of course, there's no problem here. Microsoft stands to make money whether consumers opt for Xbox or PlayStation, which is a remarkable position for a company to be in. But for the future health of the Xbox division, there's a secondary set of priorities that it really definitely involves succeeding in that competitive landscape. But looming behind all of this is the strong sense that an awful lot of eggs are being put into the game streaming basket. And the problem is, as with many of these big technology Hail Mary pitches, is that there's a serious risk that since Microsoft's holding a big hammer, it desperately needs the video games business to look like a nail. And it would undoubtedly be very good for Microsoft if, as a cloud-centric business, video game streaming became the default mainstream way of playing video games. What's far less clear is whether it would also be a very good thing for consumers, for game creators or for publishers where that be the case, especially in the near to medium term, during which time the technological and economic argument for streaming over local really rendering is going to remain somewhat unconvincing. But bear in mind that it's 2020 and consoles launching this year are still going to have drives for physical media. Given how long the transition to downloading games has taken, despite facing far fewer technological and economic challenges, we can quite reasonably say that even if the ultimate future of games lies in streaming, the actual journey to get there is going to take a pretty long time. Now, for Xbox to maintain its relevance within Microsoft, it has to keep selling that dream. You don't want to be a cloud provider that misses out on being the go-to platform for streaming games, but in order to maintain its relevance really external to Microsoft among consumers and creators, it has to actually keep Xbox as a hardware and services platform relevant, well supported and competitive with the actual competition in this space like Sony, Nintendo and Valve. Now, ultimately, Microsoft needs to carve a middle path between those extremes. If it wants to own the future of gaming, it needs to keep its eye on the ball with Xbox in the here and now, and not get distracted by daydreams of who its competition might end up being in a decade's time. Interesting. So there's a lot of eggs in the game streaming basket, as said there, and Microsoft's gambling big on the cloud streaming future, something yet to be proven in the actual real world in terms of reliability and comparable to the traditional home console experience. It seems as really if Microsoft cannot lead market share, then they'll just change the narrative. We've seen it with user engagement and we're seeing it with their game services initiative. The cynical among you are forgiven if you're thinking Microsoft are attempting to kill off the traditional console and its exclusive content. The real question is, if Microsoft were market leaders, say Xbox had sold 110 million and it was Sony lagging behind Xbox and Nintendo in third place, then would Microsoft push services narrative as hard? Probably not. But I think this Twitter comment I read recently kind of sums it up neatly. Microsoft has abandoned hardcore gamers for mass amounts of potential casuals, and while I have nothing against casuals, we have to take into account how gaming has changed in order to appease and bait casuals while making gaming less fulfilling, less challenging and heavily monetized. Wow. So the fact of the matter is, Sony PlayStation handed one of the richest companies in the world, Microsoft, their ass by working hard and releasing a steady cadence of high quality blockbuster exclusives, allowing Sony Interactive Entertainment to move 109 or 10 million PS4 units to date. And now we're supposed to accept hardware and software sales metrics are no longer as important. What say you? Go ahead, sound off, share your thoughts and opinions on today's news, because that unfortunately brings us to the end of another video. But let's continue the discussion cordially in the comments. And for all your current and next gen news updates, rumour and rampant speculation, hit the like button, spread the word, and keep it locked to Foxy Games UK. Remember, relevant links where applicable can be found in this video's description. Subscribe to Foxy Games UK, remember to hit the notification bell so you never miss content. Thumbs up if you like it here, and help us reach more like-minded gamers simply by sharing the video. Consider supporting Foxy Games UK via Patreon, or grab yourself a Foxy Games branded t-shirt or hoodie available in various colours and designs. You'll find both links in the video's description. Truly appreciate the support. And that concludes our time together today. Certainly great hanging out. Until the next video, remember, play games, not corporations.